Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Cowell Redwood State Park. My name's Stephen. I'm an interpreter here, and I'm coming to you through the California State Parks Ports program. I'm standing here amongst some of the tallest trees in the world, and I'll admit, I'm feeling a little small by comparison. Okay, well, not quite that small, but I want to welcome everyone again to Cowell Redwood State Park. And I am standing here in front of the bear claw tree, which is actually the tallest tree we have in this entire park. And it is absolutely spectacular. It is really hard to get a sense of just how tall these trees are unless you're actually standing right next to them. So that's why I had my little sub-in ranger here. And to give you an idea of just how tall these trees are, if I were the tallest tree in this park, the tree that's right behind me here, this is how tall a 6-foot person would be by comparison. So if I'm the tree, this is you right down here. So as I mentioned, these are the tallest trees in the world, and we're going to talk a lot about the redwoods, as well as about the various animals that you can find at the park here. Give me 1 second. All right, so back to our program here. So yes, welcome to Cowell. This is one of our Ports distance learning programs. We're going to talk a lot about these trees. So what is it that makes these trees so special? Well, these are the coastal redwoods. And excuse me here, I'm having a slight technical difficulty. One moment. One second here. Okay, so these are the Sequoia sempervirens, tallest trees in the entire world. And fortunately, we've got this little pocket of them here at Cowell. Now, what happened to most of the redwood trees? Well, I'm going to show you here. Take a moment to think about it. And so what happened to almost all of the redwood trees in the world? Well, sadly, 95% of every single redwood tree in the world got cut down. This is what the mountains in Santa Cruz started looking like here, just as close as 100 years ago. So yeah, we cut down these trees, but fortunately, not all of them. So why were some of them saved? Well, because a bunch of people got together and realized that, you know what? These things are really magnificent and definitely worthy of saving. So exactly how tall are these trees? Well, what do you think? Take a moment. Do we think these trees are actually taller than the Statue of Liberty? Well, believe it or not, they in fact are. The tree behind me is actually 277 feet tall. How do we know that? Well, a couple of years ago, we measured it. How? Well, with basic geometry. We got a laser finder and found out how far away the top of the tree was. We then found out how far away the bottom of the tree was. We found out the angle in between the two. Simple math problem. And now we know just how tall these trees are. So these trees are amazing for a multitude of reasons. One of which is they have adapted to survive fire. They've also adapted to survive insects, and they basically don't rot. These trees can live for up to 2,500 years. So when you think about these trees, you can't just think in years or decades. You actually need to think in terms of centuries and millennia. In fact, we have a tree here in our park, which is quite spectacular. If you were to look at it up close, this is a slice of it here. This tree was over 2,200 years old. So this tree, when the first Europeans got to America, was basically about that big. Of course, it was much older than that. It was about that big when gunpowder was invented. About that big when paper was first invented. And it was about that big in year 1. So, absolutely amazing trees here. And we have, oops, okay. So, yeah, we've got these amazing trees. Now, what are some of the things that you might find here in Henry Cowell? Well, we've got quite a few animals, but I think I'm going to start, oops, with showing you my favorite animal in the entire park. Any guesses what it might be? Well, let's take a look here. Oops. 1 second here. Nope, sorry, I'm having a slight. It's a slight problem here. Okay. All right. We're having a slight problem with the chat here, so I'm going to ask people not to chime in on the chat for a moment. Oh. Okay.
Don't mind me, Stephen. I'm just shutting off.
Okay. Are you able to turn off the chat there?
It is officially off.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So back to my favorite animal in the entire park. If I can get my screen, there we are. Let's see if we can find him here. I think I have found him. So if you had guessed a banana slug, you were correct. Wow, look at him there. So as you notice, he's got 4 little tentacles, 2 above and 2 below. We call them tentacles because he's actually evolved from a sea snail. So, and that is why they're covered in this wonderful slime. As I said, this is my favorite animal in the entire park. They can grow over 10.5 inches long. They are the 2nd largest slug in all of the world. So, why do they have that bright yellow color? Take a moment to think about it. And yeah, it's because 1, it's a warning to all the other animals that, hey, I probably don't taste very good. And they really don't. They are covered in a horrible, nasty slime. But there's another reason for that bright yellow. And it's because of one of the trees that is adapted to live in the redwood forest. And that is, in fact, the bay laurel. And if you look at a bay laurel leaf, you can see how that could easily be mistaken for a banana slug. So not only is it a warning to other animals, but also acts as a camouflage. Really cool animals. All right, so we're going to learn a few things about the banana slugs here. And for this, we're going to play a little game. So I want you all to put your thinking caps on for a second, and I'm going to ask some questions. And the answer will be one of two things. The answer will either be a banana slug or a great white shark. So you got that? Answer will either be great white shark or a banana slug. So take a moment to think. The first question is, which animal has more teeth? What do you think? Is it a great white shark or a banana slug? Which one has more teeth? Got your answers? Well, of course, we all know it's the banana slug. That's right. If you guessed the shark, sorry, you're wrong. It is the banana slug. They have over 1,000, they have thousands and thousands of little teeny tiny teeth. So great white shark only has a few hundred. So yeah, absolutely. Which one has more teeth? Banana slug. All right, we're gonna do another one. Which animal has more noses? Is that gonna be the banana slug or a great white shark? Which one has more noses? Got your answers picked out? What do you think? Great white shark or banana slug? It is in fact the banana slug. Remember how I pointed out these two little tentacles down below and the two up above? Well, the top two are its eyes. But those bottom two little tentacles are little chemical sniffers that are basically its noses. So yeah, banana slug, two noses. Great white shark, only one. All right, should we do another? Which one, you should all get this, has more feet? Banana slug, great white shark. Which one has more feet? Take a moment. And of course, the answer is, well, no, that has no feet. It's the banana slug. That whole underside is called a foot. So it's 1 foot. Okay, kind of a trick question. We'll do one more. Which one has more breathing holes? Now, for a moment, think about it. How many breathing holes do you have? Well, if you said 2, close. Hold your nose. If you're still breathing, you know that's not right. No, we have 3. We've got 2 nostrils and our mouth. How many breathing holes does the banana slug? Which one has more breathing holes? Banana slug or great white shark? Got your answer ready? Of course, it's the great white shark. It's got all those gills. The banana slug only has 1 breathing hole on the right side of its head. Think about how strange that is. 1 hole on the right side of the head, and that's how it breathes. So these are absolutely amazing animals, and probably one of my favorite animals in the entire world. But why are they here? Well, there's something special about the redwoods that makes this the perfect environment for them. You see, these redwood trees are actually fairly selfish trees. They have a lot of tannic acid in them, and they drop all sorts of this redwood duff everywhere. Now, that tannic acid is very acidic, and it makes it very difficult for anything else to grow in the redwood forest. It also makes the trees very insect resistant. So we don't have nearly the level of insects in a redwood forest that you would in any other type. Well, insects are your primary decomposers. They crawl along the ground, eating all the little detritus. And so if we don't have as many insects, something's going to fill in that role. And that's where we get our wonderful banana slug. Ooh, and we've got a great shot here of the breathing hole of our banana slug. If we can get in close without disturbing him. You can see right there, that hole. That's how he breathes. We got the 2 eye tentacles above and the 2 little nose tentacles down below. And he's just having a happy little day here. All right. So we're going to do a little science experiment. And for that, first, I'm going to show you something and I want you to see if you can figure out what it is. Can anyone tell me what this is? If you said a pine cone, you are 100% correct. This is actually a sugar pine cone. It comes from the sugar pine tree. You found these up in Tahoe, among other places. Yeah, it's a pretty big cone. Now, can anyone tell me what that is? Well, if you said a pine cone, you're close. But whereas the pine cones come from pine trees, this actually came from a redwood tree. So what do you think we might call that? Take a guess. If you said a redwood cone, then you're absolutely correct. This little cone will hold about 80 to 100 seeds. How big is a seed from a redwood? Well, there you go. That's it. That tiny, tiny little thing technically could grow a tree over 300 feet tall. In fact, the tallest redwood tree we know about is 379 feet. It's much further north from here, and it's called Hyperion. But yeah, little tiny seed like that is capable of growing a redwood tree. Of course, the redwood cones look a little different when they fall fresh off the tree. They're actually green, and you can see they're more solid. As they dry out, they start to open up. So we're going to do a little experiment here. I'm going to take these cones, and I'm just going to drop them in some water here. And then we're going to take a look at that in about 10 minutes. See if we can find out what happened. If you have any guesses, now's the time to start thinking about it. Let's look at it in about 10 minutes, because something pretty special is going to happen. So, I need to talk a little bit about the rings on this tree. Now, as I mentioned in our slice here, if I can pull it up. This tree was 2,200 years old. And if we get in close, you can barely even see the rings as we go around here. They are so close together. To give you an idea, these trees, it's tough to know how old they are. Because you can see we've got a tree like this one. You can see how close together those rings are. Even further old growth ones, you can see the rings start getting really close together. But each of those rings is a year. Of course, there's a big difference between old growth and second growth trees. Because the newer trees, they can look like this. See how far apart these rings are? So this whole tree is only 17 years old. And that is what happens when you clear cut a forest. So the trees here have never been logged in our redwood grove here. That makes them pretty special. As I said, we cut down 95% of every single tree, coastal redwood tree in the world. Now, are coastal redwood trees or Sequoia sempervirens the only types of redwood trees? No, there are actually two other types. One is the giant sequoia. It has cones that look like this. And you find those in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Then there's the dawn redwood. And their cones look like this. Very similar to the coastal redwoods. So what's the difference between the three different types of redwoods? Well, these ones here, the coastal redwoods, they are the tallest trees in the world. Nothing else really comes close. The ones in the Sierra, those are the giant sequoia, and they are the biggest trees in the world. But they don't quite get as tall. And then there's the dawn redwood, which is actually found in China. And they're kind of special because they don't grow very big. They don't grow very tall. But in the winter, they lose their needles. So they're what we call deciduous. And they're a deciduous conifer, meaning cone-bearing tree, which is really, really strange. You don't find many of those in the world. So it's one of the things that make them pretty special. Now, all right, we are going to talk about some of the animals that you might find in a redwood forest. And for that, you know what? We are going to actually take a tour into our visitor center. And I can show you some of the animals that can be found. Our visitor center is currently closed to the public, so this is kind of a treat. We have several taxidermied animals, and they are very commonly found here in the park, including my second favorite animal, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we get in there. But to give you a hint, it has claws like that. Okay, let's see what animals we can find in the visitor center here. Another one of my favorites. Does anyone know what that might be? To give you a hint, look at that short little tail. That is what we call a bobcat. Then, of course, you can also find snakes here at the park, and even bats. We also have raccoons. And in our rivers, we've got various fish. This next one I can hear just about every night around here. That, of course, is our coyote. And they're just loving things out here these days. And then we're going to come to one of my favorites. And that is our newest addition to the visitor center here, the mountain lion. Now, this is a young female. She was sadly hit by a car, but now she lives here, and so that way people can come and see these magnificent animals. We also have several different birds that live here. One second. So we have owls. We've got different types of hawks. And of course, we even have skunks. So yes, all sorts of animals here in the visitor center. And we have all of these here at the park. Of course, the other one that we don't have here in the visitor center is a deer. And yeah, you gotta believe we've got a lot of deer here. So this park is full of animals, and it's full of trees. We're gonna see if I can get you a good shot of just how tall these trees are here. So as we look up, there again is the bear claw tree. Just look at how tall they go. And we're going to show you some of the more spectacular trees in just a second. Okay. We have here. Okay, so this is a redwood tree. And as you can see, the bark is very thick, very rough. And it's, again, filled with tannic acid, which is one of the things that makes it so resistant to fire and insects. There we go again. And this here is the giant. That is my favorite tree in the entire park. As you can see, we can get up close there. And there you can see up towards the top. It is a magnificent tree. Last time we measured it was 275 feet tall. There you can see the base, and I love that picture because if you look right here, you can see this burl sticking out. Of course, now we have these branches out here. Those weren't there a few years ago. But what I like about this shot, so we have another picture here, which I'm going to show you from over 100 years ago. This picture was taken in 1903. And if you look there, you can see that person. And you can see we've got the little burl right here, same burl, just no branches coming off. Now think for a second, does anyone know who that is? It's actually one of my heroes standing there in front of the giant. That would be actually Teddy Roosevelt, one of our great presidents. And it was actually his trip here to Henry Cowell Redwoods, as long as a hike he took with John Muir, that actually led to him changing his mind about how mankind should have a relationship with nature. He decided that, yeah, maybe some of these things are worth protecting, and then greatly expanded our national parks. So it's thanks to him that we have a lot of the parks we have today. So I did mention we do have mountain lions here. Again, that's the claw. However, mountain lions really aren't something that people have to worry about. They have their territory, and as long as we're not bugging them, they're pretty safe. There's only one thing to keep in mind if you ever do encounter a mountain lion, and that's not to run. Whereas mountain lion attacks on human beings are incredibly rare. Pretty much the only time that changes is if you're running, then it might hit your prey. But of course, they really only come out at night. Now, we know of at least 3 mountain lions that are here at Henry Cowell that have this park as part of their territory. But I've been working here 4 years and I've yet to see a single one. So absolutely magnificent creatures. Just don't intrude upon their territory and don't run. On that, if you get a chance to see one, you are incredibly, incredibly lucky. So, we have our experiment. Now, if you remember, I put those cones in water. Now's the time to take your guesses. What do you think happened? Any guesses? They sprout? Did something else happen? Wow. Look at that. The water has turned this really, really cool reddish color. Let's see, it's white behind it there. You can see it. Yeah, we have got red water. Why did the water turn red? Well, that's something called tannic acid. That is leached out of those cones into the water. That's the thing that makes these trees very fire resistant, very insect resistant, as well as keeps the wood from rotting. And it's one of the adaptations that allows these trees to survive fire. There's another one, if you want to look here for a moment. Most of these redwood trees, as you can see, don't have a lot of branches until we get way up. Why do you think that might be? Well, the reason is because when a fire comes through here, that way the fire will burn up all the underbrush real quickly, but then it won't actually climb up into the tree and get up into the canopy. And so the trees tend to survive just fine. In fact, sometimes the fire will get inside the tree and burn out the whole center of the tree. But as long as the layer just inside the bark survives, the tree does just fine. And the bark will slowly heal over the wound. And the tree can keep on going throughout its life. You see, anything that's going to live for a couple thousand years has got some pretty good adaptations and is a pretty good survivor. So how long have redwood trees been around? Believe it or not, they have been here since the time of the dinosaurs. I have here a piece of redwood tree that is millions of years old. Now this, of course, is a fossilized piece of redwood tree, or a petrified wood, as they call it. So this tree was actually alive at the time of the dinosaurs, millions of years ago. Now, what is this? It's a piece of it's actually basically a stone in the shape of a redwood tree. This redwood tree was buried, and then slowly as water passed through, the minerals replaced all the organic parts and just left behind a rock in the shape of a redwood tree. Pretty darn cool, if you ask me. So yeah, these trees have been around for millions of years, and they are really, really special. So we are going to take a quick, one more thing I have to show you here. Take a look at that. That is something also that we find here in redwood forests and that we know very, very little about. Believe it or not, that is what we call an albino redwood tree. Those needles are white and they have no chlorophyll. So those trees, the albinos, are not actually able to make food from sunlight. How do they survive? Well, they're actually connected underground to the roots of neighboring redwood trees, and they get their nutrients from there. But the science is all very new, so we don't know exactly what's going on. If they're a parasite to the parent tree, or perhaps some sort of symbiotic relationship. So we'll learn that over the next several years, but it's kind of exciting that we have things about these trees that we still don't know the answer to. All right. And here we go. Pull up for you here. Oops. Yes, have to talk about that. Okay, one more thing we have to talk about here is this root system. So these trees have amazing roots. They, however, do not go down very deep. These roots from the trees behind me only go down about 6 to 10 feet at most. However, they do go out. And in fact, they will go out almost as far as the tree is tall, up to 150 feet or more. And that is one of the reasons why this tree behind me here is such a tall tree. We don't think it's actually very old, but it's near the edge of the river. And so it gets a lot more sunlight on one side, and its roots can actually make it down all the way to the river, so it never needs water. Because water is one of the key factors of these trees. In fact, there's a very significant reason why these trees only grow along the coast of California, the bottom parts of Oregon. Take a moment to think about what that might be. We've got something very special here on the coast that isn't everywhere. Any guesses? Well, if you guessed the fog, you are correct. During the winter, we get a fair amount of rain, but our summers are very, very dry. So in the summer, these trees need an alternate water source, and that actually is the fog. As the fog comes in, it'll hit the needles on the tree. It will condense and then start dripping down to those really shallow roots. There's also a fungus in the needles that can actually pull that water right up out of the fog and into the tree itself. So pretty spectacular trees, if you ask me. And yeah, that's the reason you'll find them on the coast. Now, they have been planted all around the country, and as long as they get enough water and sunlight, they do pretty well. But along the coast is the only place you'll naturally find them. So I was going to show you something else here. And where are we? Oh, yes. We were going to talk a little bit about come on. We're going to talk a little bit about this guy. Does anyone know what this is? Well, if you said a bear, you're correct. But can anyone tell me what type of bear? Well, there's one very good trick to knowing. That is, if you look here, you see this hump there. That tells you that it's a grizzly bear. And in fact, we have them here on the California State Parks patch, if you notice. You can see that hump right there. But here's the sad thing. Sadly, we have no more California grizzly bears. A lot of people ask, have you seen a bear here in the park? Well, no, they haven't been here for over 100 years since the last one was killed. Now, fortunately, we've realized that making animals go extinct is probably not the best thing. But sadly, the California grizzly is extinct. Now, these bears were a bit bigger than the ones you'd find out in Yellowstone or other places. Because especially here down the coast, they did not need to hibernate during the winter. So they just kept eating. Normally, a bear loses a lot of its body mass during that hibernation. Not so the California grizzlies here at the coast. They would just keep getting bigger and bigger and end up being roughly the size of a polar bear. If you can imagine that, that's a pretty fearsome sight. So they were here, but sadly are no more. And that is why we put them on the California State Park patch, to remind us of the bears that are no longer here and to make sure that we never do that again. A couple more things you might find in the forest here if you come for a visit. We have, take a guess if you know what that is. Everyone got a guess in their mind? How about that? These are two plants that we have here that are often confused. As you can see, they've each got clusters of 3 leaves. However, oops. And here again, you can see the clusters of 3 leaves. If you guessed that that is poison, that this one here is poison oak, sorry, you're wrong. This here is our native blackberry. This one here is our native poison oak. How do you tell the difference? Well, if you look real closely around the edges of these leaves, they're very smooth. Whereas, if you look at the edges here, they're actually sharp and rough, what we call serrated. And if you look real closely here, we've got little thorns sticking out of it. So, important to know the difference between your blackberry and poison oak. However, they often are found growing together. So we have here one more. Oops. Okay, so one thing we haven't talked about yet is what the needles look like and why they are the way they are. You see, we've actually got multiple types of needles on this tree. Well, sort of. You'll see what I mean. When we have the trees down low, close to the ground, this is what the needles look like. Nice and broad. Towards the top of the tree, though, they look like this. You can see how different those needles are. They're tiny. These here at the end here, these are the little female cones. I'm sorry, the male cones. But these needles are tiny by comparison. And the reason for that is the top of the tree gets so much more sunlight that the needles down here at the bottom would actually burn. It is an entirely different ecosystem up at the top of this tree than it is down here at the bottom. There are some insects and some animals that they only live up in the top of the tree. They never even come down to the ground, and vice versa. So it's really quite amazing when you start thinking about trees that are hundreds of feet tall. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in here. Again, this is Henry Cowell Redwood State Park. My name is Stephen. I'm one of the interpreters here. And we are coming to you from the California State Parks Ports program. We've got lots of great programming all week long. So please go to our website and check out the schedule of presentations we have. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a little something. And yeah, I think we are going to, oops. Well, I was going to show you our banana slug friend again, but he seems to have completely taken off and disappeared. Oh, wait, nope, there he is. One second. So, thank you again for joining in. Where is he? Ah, yes. There's our wonderful little banana slug. He's desperate to get out, and you can see the slime trail there on him. Now, he's trying to get out of the sun here because it's finally a warm day. We've had quite a bit of moisture lately, so he'll make his way back to someplace a little bit more comfortable. But I'm glad he was able to join us. So thank you again for tuning in to the California State Parks website, and you have a wonderful day, and hopefully once the park reopens, you can come and visit us. So thank you again. My name's Stephen, and you have a great afternoon.